What's up, you guys? This is Thomas McElroy, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
Here's how I want to intro this show. Usually what we do is we just start the conversation, and then Pete and I go back and we cut in an intro where we talk about our guest and, you know, accomplishments, whatever. But I want to go back to our very, very first episode.
Oh, way back then.
Yes. Our very first episode featured James Early. And the very first sentence spoken on our show was this. If you grew up in Vallejo, California, and you were a musician, you knew that James Early was bad.
Yeah.
And you did.
Well,
but now, James, I'm going to have to ask you to relinquish your crown, because if you grew up in Vallejo, California, and you were a musician, you knew Felton Pilate was bad.
Absolutely. Or you were deaf.
Or you were deaf.
Hey, we watched Don Cornelius today doing a little bit of show prep.
Yeah.
And him actually and Dick Clark. You guys been to both their shows, and they were both so proud to say Vallejo.
Vallejo, yeah.
Yeah, Dick Clark's like, Vallejo. Yeah, man. He was digging it.
Yeah. So, yes, let's make it official, though. Felton, welcome. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No,
and thank you for sitting at my kitchen table. You know what? I really appreciate that you're here. We're going to get to the meat of this conversation. And some of it, really, that we want to talk about was something that you said to Dick Clark. Okay. But before we do that, I'm going to say I want to give a shout out to my brother, Derek Willis, who has passed. Worked for you many years ago.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge him, because I don't get enough of him. Didn't get enough of him when he moved to Louisiana. He used to call me usually about once or twice a week. He would call me on his way home from work. And it'd be about 3 o'clock here, about 5 o'clock there. And he'd call me and we'd just chew the fat, and I miss him. Yeah, but he's the first person who introduced me to you. I met you in 1986.
Dang. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
At your house in Somerset. The meeting went something like this, and it had a profound effect on me. I sat up straight, and I reached out, and I looked you in the eye just like my dad taught me, and we shook hands. I said, "Hello, Mr. Pilate," and I reached out to shake your hands, and you gave me like a warm, you came in for the handshake, and you said, and I said, "Hello," and you said, "What it is." And I walked away from that experience thinking, wow, I just met the coolest cat I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. Wow, you remember that. That's cool.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Great.
He remembers the first line that was ever said in the show.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff up in that head.
Certain things, I got a big head, but certain things stick with you.
Fantastic recall there, right?
And a lot of those things have to do with music. And a lot of the rich musical history in Vallejo has to do with you and came from you. So there's your starting line.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to go back and give some shout outs to the folks who inspired me. Starting with my neighbor, Benjamin Marcello. I mean, he was the first musician that I met in town. He was a professional. You know, I moved to Vallejo when I was 5, right? And he was our next door neighbor. He was a professional musician. And
from where, by the way?
You from Mississippi?
I moved from Mississippi. I was born in Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow.
And what moves a guy from Jackson, Mississippi to beautiful, scenic Vallejo?
My dad was in the military, and he was stationed at Mare Island.
All right.
Yeah, he was a medical officer for the Navy.
Okay.
You know.
Wow.
So,
well, I'm sure glad that happened.
Well, yeah, me too.
And when you moved here, you met Benjamin. He was your neighbor.
Yeah.
What did he do exactly?
He was just a local musician, but he has a piano, and he was great at it. And his daughter was my sister's playmate, so I'd have occasion to be over there. I'm like, he had a piano bench full of sheet music. I'm like, oh, yes. Let's go.
Man.
You know, there was a guy who lived around 2 streets away. His name was Fulton Osborne. He was huge when I was like between 14 and 16. You'd see this guy's name in the paper every week. He's playing at somebody's fashion show or whatever. And, you know, my mom was like, hey, man, you need to go be like Fulton when you grow up. You know, keep practicing piano. You'll be as good as him.
So that's where you started on the piano?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as you grew up in Vallejo, what part of town did you grow up in?
East Side.
That's a deep, deep question that most of our listeners from elsewhere won't have any bearing on. But you grew up in East Vallejo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like it, man. So did I.
Yeah.
Did you go to Vallejo High?
No, that's the only high school in town I didn't go to.
Oh, good.
The only other one.
Because I can't stand them. No. Tell us about growing up in Vallejo and the music that was around here as you developed. Where did you start gigging? Where did you ever play at the Coronado Inn? Where were the places around?
Oh man, let me see now. By the time I started my band at 16, our first gig was the Oakland Army base.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's a strange place for a first gig.
Yeah, but a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds. Yeah, it was weird, but it was fun. You know, your band's first gig, you've spent, weeks rehearsing. In reality, we only had 2 sets worth of music, so we just played the first set over again,
Yeah.
Just that thrill of being on stage of something that you own, something that you created. I can't even describe it to you.
Yeah. You spent a lifetime chasing that feeling.
Yeah. I've often said that's my drug.
But you've caught it several times.
True.
Catch and release.
Right.
So, Oakland Army Base, here's a bunch of 16-year-olds. You guys get up there. What kind of stuff did you play?
Oh, God. We played Cold Sweat.
Okay.
I can't remember if Vehicle was out. I know Vehicle was out at least the following year.
Wow.
We played a lot of Santana.
So you had horns? You had...
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We played a lot of Santana.
You're talking about Vehicle, Blood, Sweat, and Tears Vehicle.
No, it was another group. And I can't remember. Ides of March.
Ides of March. That's
Ides of
right.
March.
That's who it wasn't. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It was Ides of March. Yes.
I got a question. In that first band, because Felton is a multi-instrumentalist, what instrument were you playing or instruments?
Guitar.
Oh, you played guitar in that first band.
Yeah.
When did you begin to branch out? You started on piano. That's, of course, a great foundation because you learn a lot of things about the general, composition.
Okay. Well, since there's always been a piano in my house, even at my parents abandoned me with my grandmother for a year, but, and then they flew me out later, right? So my grandmother had a piano, so I was always, tinkling on that.
Okay.
There's always been a piano in my mother's house, so I was always fooling around with that.
There was always something for you to tinker on.
However, when it came time to join the band at Stephen Manor in 5th grade,
get down.
What I wanted to play was drums.
Right? Of course.
So I wanted to play drums, and they're like, well,
because the drums are cool.
We have too many drummers. How about trumpet?
Okay. You acquiesced.
I acquiesced, and Mom bought me a trumpet. The trumpet was the
first. At Munner Music.
Right. So the trumpet was the first instrument that I had lessons on.
I see.
After 2 years, then I started on.
Where did you take lessons for trumpet?
Oh, here in town. Of course, they started teaching me in
school.
In school.
But you took it seriously enough that you decided to seek out instruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. James Higgins.
Do you still play the trumpet at all in Con Funk? I know you play the trombone in Con Funk Shun. Do you play the trumpet at all?
Dude, I've had to a couple of times where something happens in my trombone backstage. Wait a minute, this has happened before. I've coming up the stairs and I tripped on the stairs, fell on my trombone. It's like bent in half.
Oh.
It's done.
That's what's wrong with the trombone.
Right. So we can't at the last minute. I switch over to play trumpet.
Grab something. Yeah. Who's got an extra axe around? What is it?
That's
is it
right.
a French horn?
Right.
A flugelhorn? Give it to me. I got to go out there with something.
Yeah, that was it. And then taught myself how to play guitar, and then bass is just an offshoot from that. And then
so you were immediately bit. You knew from a young age what you wanted to do with yourself. Is that true?
I knew that I wanted to play music.
Uh-huh.
It didn't dawn on me that I wanted to do it for a living.
I see.
Until junior high school, I had a chance at one of my dances.
Oh, as late as junior high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was at
Where'd you go to junior high?
Springstown,
man.
At one of the Springstown dances.
I'm an alum as well.
So
you played at a Springstown dance?
No, not played. I stood there and I was so intrigued by the band.
Okay. Do you remember what band it was?
Eugene Blacknell and the Somebodies. I can't remember who it was. But I didn't dance. I didn't pay attention anymore. But I stood there for the entire evening, just stood there and watched the bands. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
That is cool.
So you're in middle school and that's what you want to do. What moment did you go, I actually can make a living doing this? That's a different step. No shit.
I can do it.
I'm really doing this.
Okay. Well, that was the first paid gig.
Yeah.
With my band.
Right. In Oakland.
That's when I knew, okay, you know what? We can do this. And we made it. between the four of us, we split up $60 that night. So, you know, I'm like, hey, okay.
That was $60 in 1970 something, 60 something.
1968.
Okay. That's not a terrible amount of money for a 16-year-old kid.
That's true. I'm like, okay.
So all it took was somebody to give you you played some notes and they gave you some money and you said, I could do this forever.
That's right. I can't think of a more fun way to make some money.
Yeah.
You know,
another question about back then, because I remember when I had the moment where I thought, oh man, music is cool. I was at the Rangers Hall looking at a band called TNT and they were playing, I don't know what they were playing, but they were a pretty funky band and I dug them and they were playing my brother's godfather's wedding reception and it was pretty cool. So when you have that moment, you know, and it gives you a calling like that, you go home and practice. You expand your horizons. You try to listen to as many things as you can. What were the things that you listened to that influenced you to branch out, play more instruments, understand more music? What were you listening to?
At that point, and it was an interesting shift for me, and let me explain why. I was a huge Beatles fan.
Okay.
They came out. And because of the genre of music that my mother listened to and my dad listened to. And, you know, in their case, it was a case of whoever got to the hi-fi, there's a good word for it. Whoever got to the hi-fi first, they would stack up a bunch of records.
Right.
And that's what we'd be listening to for the rest of the day. So my mother was a music major and she loved classical music. So if she got to it first,
right,
I was listening to Beethoven, Mozart, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
If my dad got to it first, being the jazz fanatic, he was going to be listening to Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Frank Sinatra, you know, whatever, right? And so likewise, being in control of the radio in the car,
right,
my dad is like, you know, this radio is mine. No one is to touch it but me. So
you were very well exposed.
Right. So we had a KFRC. That was the
610 AM.
That was the pop station that I listened to, that we always listened to in the car.
Yeah.
Right?
Likewise.
And so I wasn't even aware that there was a black radio station.
Huh. Wow.
Down. Was not aware. I remember my first time hearing a James Brown song. I'm like, one chord? Really? one chord, maybe two chords in the whole song.
Really? They're just gonna keep going. Wow.
James Brown is the inventor of the loop.
Yeah.
Because, you know, later on in hip hop and all this stuff, you hear a loop in a song. It's just one groove all the way through.
Right.
But that would be James Brown.
Yeah. Just let it go and let me do my thing over it. But so how old were you when you were exposed to James Brown? Because you had so much music in your house. It's strange to hear that
I was like 14, maybe 15.
Wow.
And up to that point, and I was already creating music on pianos, but it was more jazzy and had jazzy chords and stuff. So I wasn't really introduced to the funk until I had to play it.
I see. I see.
You know what I'm saying, right? One of my first songs on guitar was Tighten Up.
Archie Bell.
Yeah. Right. And then Cold Sweat and easy stuff compared to the Beatles chords. Yeah, you were talking about Beatles song. You got some chord progressions to learn, right?
Right.
But easier groover stuff just required more technique. So it wasn't until I had to learn it because we're going to play it as a band.
Right.
Now I'm immersed in it.
I see. Yeah. Yes. That really is like learning Spanish by moving to Madrid. So there you are. You have to play. You're playing for a living, even though you're a teenager. It's like, hey, man, they're paying me to do this now. I got to get serious. I got to do it.
Yeah.
And playing funk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've been playing funk ever since.
Yeah.
That's early on, too.
Well, also, I have to say that the keyboardist in my first group, his name was Noel Fontanes, right?
Okay.
Amazing. And what made him amazing was that he had perfect pitch. He's the kind of guy who would pick up a guitar and without listening to anything, just pick it up and tune it
correctly.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
So he had listened to Santana's records and this guy named Lee Michaels. He was a big Lee Michaels fan. And Noel had learned all the solos, blah, blah, blah. So we wound up playing a lot of Santana stuff. just because he was able to.
Because he knew his way around it.
Which is, by the way, how I learned how to play lead guitar. Back then, we had the record players.
Well, that ain't so bad.
We had the record players, and I'd slow the record down to 16, and learn the guitar solos.
That right there requires a pause for a second, because nobody knows what the heck even slowing the player down to 16 even means anymore.
Right, I know. Right.
How crazy is that? That's awesome.
A record player that, if we were going to play 45s or singles, it'd go 45 revolutions per minute.
Yeah.
The record would play at 33 and a third revolutions.
Yeah, or 72 and then old ones.
That's right.
Yeah.
78.
78?
That's 78, yeah.
78, yeah.
So now, go ahead.
The other thing I got to say is, the only other person I ever heard of who had perfect pitch didn't actually have, it was Merrill Steubing on Love Boat, the captain. He's like, I have perfect pitch in one of the episodes. So there's now 2 people I know that have perfect pitch.
Okay. Actually,
perfect
3.
pitch
is
oh, yeah?
Felton has perfect pitch.
No. I have what's called relative pitch, which means that if I hear the first note and you play a different note, I can tell you what that second note is, because I know how far away it is from the first note.
I've heard of perfect pitch not being a blessing. I heard of a girl who had perfect pitch who can't ride Bart.
Right.
Because the note that plays on the track drives her bananas.
Yeah, for some people. Noel was like that at one point. Singing a flat note, and
it would he would cringe. Wow.
Well, I'm that way now. It actually hurts. Thank God for auto-tune, because it hurts.
Wow.
If someone can't hit the right note, then auto-tune should be there, because it could be painful.
Never go do karaoke with James.
Oh, no. I'm going to run out screaming. Trust me, I will be out of there.
That's not true. James is very, very forgiving. I went through a period in my life where I didn't play the drums for a long, long time, and I didn't pay attention to it. I still enjoyed listening to music, but then I met James. Slowly but surely, he said, man, you got to get back on the traps, man. Come on. And he would prod and nudge and nudge and prod. And then one day we found ourselves in a place where there was a drum set. He said, go up there.
All right.
And I couldn't not, because okay, man, I guess.
Yeah.
And, it'd been years and my meter was terrible or whatever, and he didn't care. Let's do another one.
Because John can play. He can play drums. Yeah.
Well, anyway. So, yeah.
John's last gig was he sat in completely unaware it was going to happen at Dwayne Wiggins' place.
Oh.
And Levi Caesar said, the drum player's not here, he's in traffic.
We were just hanging out. I was just kind of standing back because everybody was tuning up, setting up the rehearsal. I didn't want to get in the way. And then I saw Juan Escovedo. And he and I had played together years ago. We had a little reunion. Hey, man, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. The rehearsal was scheduled to start, and everybody was standing around. And Levi said, yeah, man, the drummer's not here. He's stuck in traffic. He's on 880, but he'll be here in a little while. And Juan said, he plays the drums, and I stood there like a deer in the headlights. What do you say when Juan Escovedo says, hey, man, get up there?
Yeah. So John says, I'm a little rusty, and as he's saying that, everybody's walking out to their instruments. They don't care.
Right,
Just get up there and go beat on them
Get
things.
to it.
It wasn't. Nobody was calling for a solo. They just wanted to feel the kick.
Right.
So I could supply that. Thank you, James, for bringing that back up.
Nice.
The thing about you, Felton, is you have been sort of a guardian of music in Vallejo for all of my life, really. You were not far from where I live. I grew up on Granada Street. And so when we met, you were in Somerset.
Right.
So here was the world famous Felton Pilate, who lived a mile away from me. And, my good friend Derek worked for you.
Right.
So he would say things like, yeah, man, I got to go to work. I'll call you later. And he would go to work. And then he would call me later and he would go, hey, man, Pebbles is here.
Right.
Or something like that. And I would just say, man, come on, you got to bring me over there. When are you going to bring me over there? And eventually he did. And that's when we met. But I mean, really, that's what you were for most of us growing up here. We looked to you as the person who had accomplished what we all wanted to do. Which wasn't just go out and be a rock star, but it was go out and make good music.
Thank you. Yeah. The turning point in all this for me was when Michael Cooper approached me and says, hey, man, I heard your group broke up. Would you consider joining us?
Is that how that happened?
That's exactly how it happened. I had my group, we called Interbreed, and then the second version of that was called Second Movement, right?
Okay.
And then we had to disband because the drummer had bad grades, and so his dad was wait a minute, I'm gonna bust him now. Bobby Brown, the son of Robert from Brown's Jewelers, his son, Bobby got bad grades, so his dad was pulling him out. And I was like, I don't feel like finding somebody else. Let's just disband. Screw it. I quit. Michael heard about it. Felton, man, heard you quit, man. Would you consider joining us? Now, on the inside, I'm going, yes. What I said was, yeah, man, I'll give it some thought.
about 5 seconds of thought.
See what I'm saying, though? Always cool. I'll think about it.
Oh, yeah, I'll give it some thought.
I'll give it some thought.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it took, yeah.
And so then it was a further immersement in top 40 and a wonderful education for me because, James, as you know, the ultimate compliment, if you're a top 40 band, the ultimate compliment that you can get is, God, you guys sound just like the record.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It was always my mission to get that compliment. So I spent a lot of time listening to the records and learning the parts exactly as they're played.
Right.
And of course, that whole process, when it's time to become a producer or songwriter, you call all that stuff back. Oh, that's all right. So how did those Earth, Wind & Fire keyboards, how do you play that? And let's combine that with how this group had the guitar parts going. So let's merge that thing with this thing here. And, it's invaluable, man.
Yeah.
The nuances is really where, the devil is in the details. Right. And what you're talking about, when you hear those records and you really dig deep to sound like the record, the problem that most people have, and this is for the layperson who's listening to the show, is that your song may have this chord progression and it may be the same as some other chord progression in another song, but your interpretation as an instrumentalist, the way that you communicate it, where you are in the groove and the way that you accent things and all of those things those are the subtleties that make you sound like the record.
Yeah.
So really it came down to learning all of the details of all your influences and being able to recall them later.
Yes.
So that when they were useful to you again, you could reach back and go, yeah, I remember when I used to have to loosen my wrist to do this.
For me, when I was a kid, it was like a game for me. I'd be in the backseat of the car. Like you said, we had black parents, man. Many times it was like, don't touch the radio. This is mine. And they really, I'm telling you, they really meant it. They would pull over the car. There might be a fight in the street. Don't touch the radio. So we listened to whatever our parents were playing, but it was like a game for me to study the instrumentation and see. I mean, even at a young age, I understood each instrument and I was like, wow, that's what the guitar player is doing. That's what the keyboard player is doing. And so, and that's what the vocalist is doing. And I guess we were training to be producers even as children and didn't know it.
Well, the training ground for being a producer is, I think, presented to everyone. Everybody has access to all the things that you guys had access to. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of what you feel like digging into and the fact that you want to go into that level of detail and the fact that you are listening to your parents' music, which you didn't know at the time was quality music that was going to influence you.
Sure.
Because, man, my dad had a big conversion van. It was green. It was hideous. But it had a decent sound system. Yeah. And I used to be way in the back. And my dad, thank goodness, used to listen to KSFX.
Okay.
And they at least would play some things that had, horns. And my dad was a sax player as well. So they would play things with horns and things that had, a variety of grooves. And when you listen to those things, that's great. It's one thing to enjoy them. It's another thing, though, when in your mind you're taking them apart.
Yeah.
And I think that's a process that you can say, well, we were in the producer's training ground because our parents, but it's only partially because of your parents. I mean, part of it is that your ear desired to understand what was going on there.
Right.
And then some of that had to do probably with the complications of music you had been introduced to, like classical music and things where you had to take it apart to hear it.
Yeah.
We had Dr. Bob Greenberg on our show a couple episodes ago. He's a professor of music. He's got a show on Aura TV called Scandalous Overtures. We plug it as often as we can because it's a terrific show.
Okay.
And he's kind of the Neil deGrasse Tyson of classical music. He helps you understand it. He helps the lay person figure out what was cool about it. And one of the things that he said was he went to Princeton. He had a hoity-toity music education.
Right.
And when he was a sophomore at Princeton, his brother called him and said, hey, his brother was the class president at his high school. And he said, our prom, we're doing our planning for our prom, and I got you a prom ticket because I want you to hear this band. He grew up in New Jersey. I want you to hear this band. And he said, I have no time for a band playing a prom. I am a sophomore at Princeton studying composition. I will not be attending your prom. And told him to take his ticket and shove it. And the band was Bruce Springsteen.
Wow.
So,
Oops.
The E Street Band.
right. When they were playing proms.
Right.
Just before they had taken off. But also, though, not entirely out of your wheelhouse because you played some dances, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How old were you when Michael approached you and recruited you?
19.
You were 19.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like a regular job making like $2 an hour back then?
Good question.
Music has been my only source of income since 1972.
Wow.
Now, at one point in 1972, I tried to go to a mall near where we were living in Memphis and sell organs. That lasted for about 4 days.
4 days. You had a day job for 4 days.
I had a day job for 4 days and then said, no, this is.
In 1972, well, we have to back up now because in 1972, you were living in Memphis.
Right.
You guys were signed to a record deal. Is that right?
No, we were asked to be the backup band for a Stax recording group called the Soul Children.
The Soul Children. Okay. I'm sorry. And so I thought you had signed a record deal and they said, well, as part of your training, as part of your development process, we're going to send you guys to Memphis. No. But that's not true. You guys were hired out of here to go play in Memphis. How did they find you?
Actually, they had approached us a year before and they came to do a concert out in, no. Actually, let me go back. While I was still playing with my band, Second Movement, Michael Cooper came and recruited me to do a one-night gig because they wanted a third horn player and for one song, an extra keyboard player. So the manager, Jesse Kane, had arranged that the Soul Children were coming out here and they didn't want to bring their band. They wanted to hire a band here. So they hired Project Soul. Michael Cooper brought me in to play an extra horns and keyboards on one song. And so we did that one concert with them, right?
Okay.
Now, after I've joined the band, so this was in 72, right? And the Soul Children came back out. They were doing a concert. Yeah. Michael, 1970. No, I was 18. I was 8. Yeah, I think that's 17, about to go on 18 when Mike asked me. How we got hooked up with the Soul Children after we did that concert for them in Oakland. I think they came out. So that was before I joined Project Soul. So that had to be early 1970, right? They came back out and did a concert in Oakland, I think at the Showcase Lounge in late July 1972, right? And Michael and I went to the concert at a nightclub. The place was sold out. All the chairs were gone. So Michael and I we sat on the floor in front of the stage, right? And we're just watching the show and we're talking to Norman West, who was the leader of the Soul Children after the show. They came out in their Greyhound bus and they had a backup band and we were sitting down, watching the show, we've still been in contact with Norman. So Michael and I are talking to him out in front of the club and Norman's like, hey, so what are you guys doing now? And one of us said, I can't remember who it was. He said, well, we're just sitting around waiting to be your backup band. And Norman went, really? Yeah. He fired his band that night.
No kidding.
He fired his band.
Damn.
Sent them home.
Put them on the bus and sent them home.
Put them on something.
On
something and sent them home 4 to 5 days later.
Man.
We had 4 or 5 days later to tell our families we're leaving.
We're moving to Memphis.
We're packing up and we just got a gig and we're moving to Memphis. We left here August 4th, 1972. Also, let me rewind to 1971, because this is tied into it, right? We're doing a gig at the Hardy Theater where it was a benefit for sickle cell anemia, right? Big benefit. Stevie Wonder was there. Stevie Wonder and Donna Hathaway were there. Jesse had arranged for, hey man, you guys can play at this benefit, right? So we're there. Stevie's there. Donnie's there. Now it's getting late. They've already performed, right? We're still sitting, we're still hoping for our chance to play. Rufus Thomas was in town. Now, Rufus Thomas, another master of the loop thing, right? Rufus Thomas would never bring his own band. He just showed because his stuff was just so
simple enough.
Yeah. Tell one band,
here's how it goes.
Here's how it goes.
Let's let it roll.
Let's go. Marvin Holmes and the Uptights was the other local hot band here in town, right? They had put out a couple of singles that were hot here in the Bay Area, right? I think they had a 3-piece rhythm section and 5 or 6 horns. I mean, so like we hadn't played yet, and earlier they were warming up. They had some instrumental version of What's Going On that was like killing. I mean, we've got 3 horns, and we were sitting there with our mouths hanging. I'm like, damn, we want to sound like them when we grow up, But Rufus had them playing up on stage, right? I think he was playing Walking the Dog, whatever the song he was doing, Walking the Dog. And then after the song, he told the audience, now this is live. I mean, however many people are here in the theater, y'all hold on a minute. I got something to take care of. And he walked off stage and came to the dressing room and said, is there a band down here that can play?
Yeah, we can do it.
He said, y'all know breakdown? Now we had just learned breakdown. We do the breakdown, Chuck. We had just learned it, and that was one of the songs I had meticulously listened to sound just like the record.
Oh man,
Michael was singing lead vocal, and we had that. Yeah. So he walked back up on stage and fired the other band in front of the audience. Y'all can go. And so
say what?
And so. And the audience then asked, we're switching bands, and he's making jokes. We're plugging in. And I do remember him. He said, y'all ready? Yeah. And he walked over there and stood in front of me to ask me specifically, you sure you know this? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. The song started, and it was the only word, magic. He was very happy. I mean, indeed, we had this sound just like, what he wanted. So, did we say goodbye? And that was that, right? Now, fast forward to
71.
That was 71.
A year later.
So we're leaving with the Soul Children. Because 3 weeks later, we're now filming the Stax movie.
Wow.
3 weeks later, we're now filming a live movie, a live album, performing in front of 104,000 people at the LA Coliseum.
Wow.
Some boys fresh out of Vallejo.
This was, people say luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was exactly, there's no better description.
We were,
and the Stax movie was the black version of Woodstock.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Yeah. 104,000 people at the LA Coliseum.
Now every year there's the Watts Music Festival, right? And so what happened this particular year with that Stax Records made them a deal. You know what? We'll provide all the music.
Yeah. And they brought the whole roster out.
And they brought the entire Stax roster.
Wow.
So Isaac Hayes, The Emotions,
Booker
Johnny
T
Taylor,
EMG.
Booker T, the Barcades.
The Barcades.
Now, this was my first time seeing the Barcades. And they were doing Son of Shaft. Now I happen to be getting to stand on the side of the stage and watch this. But they had on these outfits.
Oh man!
And now at this point, we're still playing in our stage clothes. No, our street clothes.
Right.
We hadn't gotten to.
There weren't stage clothes. They were just clothes.
Right. So
And then here come the Barcades, like they just came from outer space.
And
they have stage clothes.
Oh yeah. So that definitely influenced us to make a change.
Man!
Like, dude. Check this out. That's what we need. That's what we need to be dressing like.
That space outfit. Right. That's what we need. Man, but that is a terrific story.
But wait a minute. So we're the Soul Children's backup band.
Okay.
But Rufus Thomas heard that we were playing. He's like, oh hell yeah, I remember you guys from you guys play for me too. Sure.
So you guys went out there and you were working. You were working double time.
Working double time. The interesting part was that the Soul Children didn't make it to the movie. Rufus Thomas did.
But you made it in there with Rufus Thomas?
Right.
Man.
Rufus has two, maybe three songs in the movie. Soul Children didn't even.
I hadn't heard any of these things. And many years ago, I found myself in Memphis. I was traveling for work and I had to go out there and visit Memphis for a few days. So naturally I had a few days to kill. So I did all the things. I want to go to Sun and I want to go to Stax, and I went to Stax, and you go through Stax, and now they've turned the whole studio into a museum.
Yes.
And they've got Isaac Hayes' Cadillac in there turning on a turntable, and they've got all kinds of stuff in there. And there's a picture in there of what I know as Con Funk Shun, though. I didn't know that you, at the time, hadn't known that you guys spent those couple years in Memphis.
Yeah.
So it was cool, man. And I'm there all by myself, nobody to share the experience with. I'm just like, man, this is and nobody else knows how cool this is.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the interesting part. We auditioned for Stax because we were trying, after we quit the Soul Children, and we're looking to get a record deal.
Huh? Sure.
And we auditioned. We sent them an audition tape and they turned us down.
Wow.
Oops.
We didn't sound Southern enough. We still had those Tower Power, Chicago. We had that too much West Coast sound,
man,
and it didn't work for them. Now,
I didn't know.
Now they filed for bankruptcy the following year. We're like, okay,
yeah,
we dodged that bullet. However,
maybe you didn't dodge that bullet. Maybe they foresaw that they couldn't handle you guys.
They were looking out for us. Yeah, that was it. But we did spend time working at Stax because we were the studio musicians.
Yeah.
In Studio C for a long time.
How much better of a training ground can you get?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Because the other interesting thing that's at that museum is a map. There's a map of that section of Memphis.
Right.
Just that neighborhood. And there's a dot for every place that somebody lived who was musically noteworthy. And it was, Maurice and Verdine White.
Yep.
And then all of the Stax artists, and that neighborhood was just
full of it.
Man.
While you eat your pizza, let's have James tell you the story about the time when you basically brought him in to learn how to become an engineer and a producer. Because that's awesome. And you need a chance to eat your pizza. So tell us that story, James.
Wow. I was blessed again to be also from Vallejo, California, this city, but what happened is my family moved to Los Angeles and we were in the acting industry, the film industry. And so anyway, being down in LA, my friends that I knew down there were all like, where are you from? I know you're not from here because you just moved here or whatever. Where are you from? And I tell them Vallejo. And all of them to a person were like, where? Vallejo? What is that? Is that even on this planet? I never heard of it before. And so eventually, while I was out in L.A., this great band came out called Con Funk Shun back in the 70s. I'll never forget it. Funky band. Their whole thing was about, they were being promoted. It was said that they were from Memphis. And so I was like, okay, cool. I got into them just like a lot of other hot bands at the time, Brass Construction, Barcades, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, of course, and that was that. But eventually the word kind of got back to me. Maybe even I came home to Vallejo and found out that Con Funk Shun was actually in Vallejo and that they were from Vallejo. Never met them, but I was really proud at this moment. I was like, wow, this is cool. This band that I've been into, checking out their albums and everything, they're from my hometown of Vallejo, and nobody is from Vallejo ever, right? And so I had something to brag about to my friends in L.A., and even then it was a debate, Con Funk Shun's from Vallejo. No, they're not. They're from Memphis. Shut up. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh. So anyway, I idolized these guys from a distance, but I never at that point had met them. So when I eventually relocated back to Vallejo after high school, my mother had suggested that I go to the studio because she knows I wanted to get in the studio, and I was really not happy about moving back to Vallejo, to be honest with you. And she said she was trying to keep her son's spirits up, but at the same time wanted to help, continue and further my endeavor in the music industry. So she said there's a friend of a friend that knows Felton Pilate from the group Con Funk Shun, and he has a studio, and if you want to get in there and go record with him, you can do that. And I was kind of like, first of all, I don't think you actually know anybody that knows Felton. Love you, Mom, but I think you're making it up, but she did.
Come on, Mom, quit making up stories.
Yeah. And she said, and I'll book a couple of hours for you, whatever, let you come in and record if you want to do it. And I said, yes, all right, I'll do it, whatever. And so I came by, was blessed enough to get in. I met Felton, and I went in and did my little song. Really enjoyed Felton because I saw, even for me, I'm meeting the lead singer of Con Funk Shun. So, honestly, when that happens and you're a kid, you hear the angels sing, inside your head. You're like, oh, this is great. But, you try to be all business like, hey, how you doing, Mr. Pilate? I got to see a different side of him because he's a fantastic singer, trombonist in the band Con Funk Shun, and really that's all I knew about him. But very quickly I found out he's also a fantastic music engineer, music producer, multi-instrumentalist, keyboard player, bass player, guitar, everything else. Also a computer geek. If he doesn't mind, he's sitting right next to me. He's close enough to punch me right now. But yeah, he's a computer geek. He really is. He understands the inner workings of computers and in music and all of these instruments that are very technical. And so I was blown away and really happy to meet him, and really something inside me was going, because I knew a little something about music production, honestly, I didn't know anything about production, but I knew something about the technical aspect of music. And I was intrigued to meet someone else that was like-minded in that way. And at that time I didn't know, but he actually knew a lot more than me. And I was eager to benefit from his vast knowledge. We kind of befriended each other in a mentor apprentice sort of way, but I was still a client at the time. And so I happened to be in the studio one day, and he was just telling me, James, which his studio at that time was located in his home, lovely home, but it was in his home. He's like, James, I'm actually going to I'm going to rent a storefront and put my studio in a building on the outside. And would you like to work for me in the studio? And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I said, what do you want me to do? Sweep the floor? Because I'll be happy to do that. He's like, well, actually, no, I want you to be an engineer in my studio and a producer at night. And I was like, oh my God, this is great.
I would like to hit you over the head with something.
Yeah. But then I stopped and said to myself first, too bad it's not going to happen.
This is never going to work.
Because I'm going to have to tell him I don't know anything about engineering.
This is like when you're
producing,
sitting by the pool on a cruise ship, and the supermodel comes over, and you go, I'm sitting next to a supermodel, and she goes, would you like to rub some suntan lotion on my shoulders? And you go, I don't even know how to do that. I mean, yes, I want to, but I'm not sure what to do.
Well, thankfully there was no shoulder rubbing. There was none of that. It was all about music.
Maybe that was a bad simile.
But no, it was great. And he offered me this position, and I told him that I would love to take this position. Oh my God. But I don't know how to operate any of this, nor am I a music producer. And he just paused for a second, and I knew he was going to say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, maybe you can come see me in a couple of years. But he paused and actually said, and this is kind of where I went deaf for a minute because I couldn't believe I heard what I heard. He actually said, well, it's okay. I'll teach you. And when he said that, I was like, wow, this is like Willy Wonka right here. You know what I mean? I've got the golden ticket.
You got the golden ticket.
Because I was right at that age. I was in college at this point, but and working at Marine World.
And washing elephant butts or something.
Yeah, and Orchard Hardware, man. And so I now have a job working in the studio, and I have a platinum producer and singer that's going to teach me how to be a music producer. I couldn't believe it. I absolutely did win. It's not like winning the lottery. I did. So at that point, I was cramming, of course, because he made me rise to the occasion. I had a lot to learn in a little bit of time. And the way he made me learn that is really by doing. Absolutely. Immediately. It was no, okay, we'll take a few months or weeks or whatever. No, he was like, right now, get to work.
I tossed him into the swimming pool.
Yeah, right.
Boy, you better paddle.
Yeah.
In the deep end.
Make it happen. And I did, thankfully.
Man, that is a great story. I love that story.
That's a really good story. Where was that storefront?
Sonoma Boulevard, about 4 doors down from the Melody.
Between Georgia and Tennessee on Sonoma.
Okay.
I don't want to, Well, you know what? We get to curse on this show, and it's it's for everyone. But I'm just gonna say it's the Hostro of Vallejo, or at least it was back then. But it was a great location at the same time because it was right near downtown, and it was easy to find, and a lot of people did find it. Thankfully, a lot of people came there.
Yeah.
Man,
that's right. We had one of them hoes stop in one night.
We did.
It was Rennie. What was her name? Candy. Her name was Candy, right?
Yeah.
Of course it was.
Candy.
Her real name.
Her name was Candy. And it was raining outside, and she was standing outside, and I opened. I said, "Come in, have a seat. Want some coffee?" And
that was a metaphor for something else, actually.
and she came in, and we sat down there in the front lobby. And
Felton's other name is coffee.
This is a euphemism only a brother could get away with. How you doing, baby? Would you like some coffee?
Yeah.
And we sat there and talked. Because James had the night shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd closed down, and James was on the way, and James walked in and looked at her, looked at me.
Maybe I should leave. Got here an hour too soon.
And went on back in the back room. You're like, so she left. She went away, thanked me. I walked back to the back. He said, "Okay, I see your new nickname is Velvet."
You remember that? That's funny. Velvet Pilate. That was his name.
Hey, have you ever played with Mick Gillette at all?
No,
never had a chance to.
He is my idol because when we were watching Tower Power, growing up, and this guy was switching back and forth between trombone and trumpet. I remember wanting to do Tower Power stuff in my first band. Well, we only had 2 horns. I mean, we weren't going to carry that off well, but I was totally excited about how to make 5 horns work.
Yeah.
Watching, we went to go watch. I went to go watch them at the Long Branch. Had a chance to go see them at the Long Branch. I'm sorry, when Skip Mesquite was still playing with them, right? And they were going to bring in this other guy. He just wanted to audition. What was his name? Lenny Pickett. And they were just bringing him in just to jam and play a song. And so what happened that night? I'm sitting here watching. Loved it. Hey, I was talking about Lenny Pickett, and he's playing. He and Skip battled out just for a second, but Skip plays, and then they had Lenny play. And I remember watching Skip over the side going. The look on his face was like, damn, I just lost this job. Because Lenny was blowing. But Skip was like, man.
Who did I invite in this house? Yeah. That's funny. We talked with Mick. Mm-hmm. We had such a great time.
Jesus.
And, he's just hanging out. He's mostly retired now.
Really?
And just being a grandpa and loving that. And he plays in a band with his daughter. And so he's having the time of his life. He's really enjoying himself. And of course, everybody else in the band is just like, man, we get to be in Mick's band. And his daughter is the same way. She's a singer and she sounds terrific, but she's like, my dad is Mick Gillette and he will play with me. And so, we just had so much fun with the 2 of them on our show. And at the end of it all, we said, I said, Mick, man, doggone, that was so much fun. But I feel like we didn't touch on all the things that I'd really like to talk to you about because I want to talk to him about everything, of course. Right. And he's like, come back. Let's do it. Let's do it again. And I was like, well, you want to do it again? He goes, I want to do this all the time. All right. Can we just I'll put you in charge of capturing all the things that I've always wanted to say and things that I want to say with my daughter. So we're going to start a series with Mick.
Cool. Nice.
And I really look forward to going back to his place and saying, Mick, I sat across the dinner table from my idol, and he said you were his idol. So he's going to get a kick out of that. I know he will.
Man, he tells such great stories.
Yeah.
Too. He told the story where they're behind a curtain. They're going to play with the Stones.
Right.
And they're just kind of messing around back there, just kind of getting loose and everything. And all of a sudden, Mick hears what they're doing. And he's like, get out of here now and do what you're doing. And
Mick Jagger Jagger pulled the curtain and said, get over here right now. Cause they were just, messing around, trying to warm up. And then they played something off stage that the Stones could hear.
Right.
And Mick Jagger said, get out here right now and play that. And I don't remember what it was.
I want to say it was like Satisfaction or something, but it was one of the big songs that they play. And ever since then, they've used that arrangement, and they bring horns with them wherever they go.
Wow. On the road now. And that arrangement that they were just farting around with backstage, it lives on to this day.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Incredible.
So when you were on American Bandstand, Dick Clark went around the room
I love this.
and said, what do you guys like to do in your spare time? And he went around and he asked Michael, and Michael said, well, I'm a Solano County sheriff and I do this and do that. He got to you.
Do you remember what you said?
I said, I program computers.
You said, I run computers. That's how long ago it was. Yeah.
And so really that was your identification of, you knew that technology and music were always married. And that computers were coming.
He really should have said, I invest in computers. Because if he had said it at that time, we'd be sitting next to a multi-gazillionaire.
I know.
Yeah.
At that point, we were already having to do publishing statements, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So I had purchased a Commodore computer. You guys remember those?
Yeah. The VIC-20.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? And you could buy games that you could plug in.
Yeah.
Or you could sit down and you write your own program.
Right.
Right. And for anyone who's ever tried to write a program in BASIC.
Yeah.
It is not the easiest job in the world, right?
Oh, no.
So, but I managed to write a program for us to do our accounting. You type in the name of a song and how much the check was for. And this program, once you typed in the name of the song and typed in how much for, it would break it down into the writer's shares and the publisher's shares and leave a total of what should have been left on the back.
No kidding.
And I wrote that program. Yeah.
Wow. That was
in BASIC on a VIC-20.
on a Commodore VIC-20. On a Commodore VIC-20, Felton Pilate invented Excel. Yeah. So now, when computers first started being used for music, you were at the forefront of that as well.
What was I using?
An Atari TS-20?
No. At that, I moved up to a Mac. We had a SE-20, right?
Yeah.
That's an SE-20 in my studio. Yeah. And I had a disc of Performer, not Digital Performer, 1.2.
Wow.
That was given to me by Al Eaton from over in Oakland. Gave me a
one
copy
little
of this.
Indian.
Right.
Yeah.
He gave me this, and man, it was off and rolling. So
wow.
But in the meantime, I had experimented around with some other little hardware sequencers like Roland.
It was a Roland sequencer.
MC500.
Okay.
I still have it.
Wow. Nice.
I still have it.
You had two though. You had the white one, and then there was the one before that.
Yeah. And so we were experimenting around with MIDI sequencing.
Uh-huh. And for those that don't know, it allows you to program note information, and then have basically you could sync that up so you have multiple keyboard parts playing at the same time, and you could also program drums and have a drum sequence playing. So you'd have it's kind of a studio drummer, but it's mechanical, and so you're allowed to do that by yourself and be a one-man band.
Right. Yeah. In James's case, for example, I had 4 keyboards and an RX-5 drum machine, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you program a drum beat, and then he could play along with the drum beat and record, not on tape, but just using the computer, record the bass part and then go back and overdub parts and perfect them that way before committing them to tape.
And that back then was just revolutionary. It allowed you to really express yourself in an entire arrangement.
Yes.
Without needing to call everybody and get everybody down there and pay folks and you could write an arrangement.
Yes.
You could record the arrangement yourself.
And physically cut tape. There's you used to have to actually have a knife.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was explaining that to a class up at Solano College recently, and I said, we had to cut the tape. And they were like, oh.
You did what?
Yeah. And Felton is and was a surgeon with that knife too. He really could go to town splicing. It was impressive to watch, really.
Man. So what are you doing now? Talk with us about what you're doing now.
Okay. Man, thanks for reminding me. I was supposed to have a meeting tonight. I'm working with a guy named Vaughn King. We just finished doing a gospel project on recording artist named Michael Nelson.
Okay.
So we just finished doing that. I'm finishing up the new Con Funk Shun CD. We've been working on it for 2 years. It's actually finished.
We've been waiting on it for more than 2 years.
The record companies, the graphics are pretty much done. All the mixes are done. So we just, the last stages of that.
But Con Funk Shun has stayed active playing live all these years.
Yeah.
You guys have played live for, you can always catch Con Funk Shun. If there's a party to be had, well, keep your ears open because Con Funk Shun is coming.
Recently, they did a show at the fairgrounds, and it was so lovely to watch Felton at home in Vallejo, the Vallejo Fairgrounds, Solano County Fairgrounds, perform there. And he was really absolutely like a kid in the candy store. They were being honored for being the hometown heroes, and they came back and did a show, I guess, last summer. Mm-hmm. And it was just great to see, I've known Felton forever, but there's another side to him. When he hits the stage, he becomes someone else. This other person shows up, and it's just amazing to watch. He was running around crazy, and eventually he left the stage and ran out into the audience. And he needed security. And, when I'm with him, I'm a big guy. I become security for him. I'm not going to let anything happen to him. So he ran out there, and they tried to mob him. It was crazy. They wanted to pull him down. Women are still trying to tear his clothes off. And
still getting draws thrown at him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's jumping up on seats, and, you remember that night.
Yeah.
And they were loving it.
When was this?
This was last summer. This was last summer.
I didn't see you guys last time. I've seen you guys several times.
Oh, my God. It was a sold-out show at the fairgrounds, and it was huge. And it was completely sold out. And just for him to be able to jump on stage and perform in front of 50,000 people is crazy.
That fairgrounds is large.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the first time I saw you at the fairgrounds was in that little
exhibition hall.
Yeah, exhibition
hall.
You guys were there. I don't know what year it was, but you guys had just come back. You had Darwin Tillery on the drums.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. But it was great.
Right. But this was outside, though.
But here's what I want to say, and then I haven't said it, but this is important to me to say this in your presence, that there are a lot of bands out there that we see, and I go to I love old school music, what is now known as old school music. So I go seek out the bands that are essentially your contemporaries, and I've seen many of them. Cameo, still amazing.
Yeah.
There and a lot of bands out there doing great work. The Whispers, still terrific.
Right.
Yes.
And so many of these bands, still putting in the work, still doing the miles, just like you guys. But I've seen other bands. Who shall remain nameless.
Everyone's not great.
They're just not woodshedding anymore. But year after year after year, when you guys took a break, you came back strong. But I have to say, I think right now you guys might be stronger than ever.
We were very blessed to hook up with some superb musicians. All right. For instance, I'll say his name, Kurt Casey Clayton. Right. He's a music director for several. I can do like busy. Right.
Yeah.
And let's say that there's a song that we're going to do. Right. I just send him the song. Hey, we're playing this at the next gig, and he shows up and knows the song, and he's listened to it with that same ear. Remember, I was talking about that top 40 band
knows it with the nuances,
right? And that's one of the things that he's particularly good at is to listening for the nuances that are there, and then not only know them so well, he can now add stuff to it,
right? Internalize them to the point where now he can communicate it with his voice,
right.
Not lose any of the nuances.
Exactly. And I'm not talking about just turning it into what he would do.
Right.
He learns my part, and then in addition to my part, can still dress it up with some other stuff.
And still makes it sound like Con Funk Shun.
Right.
Yeah,
and just for example, and for instance, our bassist
EQ,
Eric. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So he's like
that boy is bad.
Let's chip in and get him some bass lessons.
I'm
going to leave some change on the table for that.
Brian Collier.
Oh
man, that boy is bad.
Yeah,
Brian, and I was scared we might lose him to Lionel Richie a couple of months ago. But he's still with us.
Eric Young, his ability on the bass is superb, but when he takes his bass solo, he really only plays through half of it. The rest of the time, he's whipping the crowd into shape.
One of the things that is particularly special is his charisma.
He has a swag that comes across, and that when it's his turn to take the microphone, I mean, the crowd is paying attention. He's an excellent addition to Con Funk Shun.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, man, here's your bass solo. He's like, yeah, don't worry. I'll solo on the bass. But first of all, to the ladies right here, and he's like, man.
Yeah, and panties are flying. They
so
are,
good.
You know
so
what I mean?
good.
The last panties that I saw on stage, I thought someone threw a parachute up there.
Oh, man.
Wow. And so, we're just blessed to have playing with us some of the best musicians. So that's helped out a lot.
Yeah. So our listeners out there, if you guys are listening to us and you're not hip to Con Funk Shun, when they come to your town, boy, they will give you your money's worth.
Absolutely.
They will rock the house.
Yeah.
And you'll probably leave that venue and get lucky.
Probably the most impressive thing about Con Funk Shun is that they make it look easy. And I promise you,
they really do. They really do.
It is not easy at all. And trust me, I can get on stage and rock with the best of them too, but it's not easy. It's really, you have to be really focused, and it's just another level of skill that even a lot of musicians don't have. Great, fantastic musicians aren't necessarily able to get on the stage and rock it like Con Funk Shun does.
Right.
We put it back together in 1993. I took a break in 1986. Actually, Michael and I, left in 1986. I went into producing full time.
And did pretty well there, by the way.
Yeah.
You did okay.
Did all right. Yeah. Producing full time. Michael.
Producing who? That we know of.
Yeah, you got to say that part.
Oh, okay. It was Stanley Burrell, better known as MC Hammer.
And this it's an important part of your career, an important part of your contribution to our musical landscape. But you had other artists too. Who else did you work with during those producing years?
A guy named Jesse James. And you know what? I have to honestly tell you, for about a year, there was someone new coming in the studio every single day.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, the Pebbles, a lot of local artists. I've done stuff with Michael Narda Walden. It's so numerous, I can't even remember names, but we were busy every day, every single day.
Yeah. What does that say about you and your impact on the music industry when you open a studio and people just start coming?
It's come back to me. People, they said it was the best musical deal in the Bay Area.
It was. Because we love to play anyway.
And you could walk in. That's the thing, is that, just to explain to our listeners from elsewhere, you could walk into your place and you weren't, an island unto yourself. You weren't necessarily stranded. People could go in there, book the studio out, and as the session went, and I know how gregarious you two are, you had help. You didn't just walk in and there was a guy who would press record and you were on your own in the world.
No, often it would work out like this. You could walk into the studio at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning with a set of lyrics and walk out that night with a finished song.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have day after day after day aspiring artists come in with their notebook and you guys would churn it out.
Yeah, and we had to get it done, and that was really the challenge. But at the same time, it was a challenge that we yearn for, really, because we accept challenges and we like that, and we know that helps us grow. But it was a challenge because we had to help a person find themselves. They came to the studio, and it's always about making a singer or a rapper sound better even than they were when they came in the door.
Or that they thought they were capable of sounding.
Right. Take them to the next level, or 5 levels higher, or 10 levels. So that was always the challenge, but also it was about getting it done in a decent amount of time, and we had to get to it. And that's really what I learned. Felton already knew it, but I was new to that whole world.
So you had to understand that there actually were limitations sometimes. You can't polish a turd all the time.
No.
Somebody has to come in there and they have to bring it. And to a certain degree, there's a place where you have to go, okay, you know what? We've only got until we got to get this done.
Yeah. And so we'd go in, and for them, we were usually the band ourselves. Right. And so we had to lay all of these parts, and there weren't always do-overs. You had to get it right the first time. And that's a great way to become better at what you do, is because you have to, get better. You have to get it done.
At the studio on Sonoma Boulevard, we had a little room off to the side that we called the incentive room. I didn't spend a lot of money in the building, so was that where the water heater was?
Yeah,
it was a separate room so we could do vocals.
It was like a closet.
A closet. We didn't have air conditioning in there, so if you
you became one take Jake.
If you were in there more than an hour, you're about to pass out from the heat. So it was called the incentive room. Man, go in there, get your part done, and
get on.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you did get it done. You were like, I can't breathe. Press record and let's get this finished.
It's amazing though how the creative process comes about, because you find yourself forcing these circumstances because, man, you gotta.
Yeah.
You just gotta. I mean, it's no different than I'm a 19-year-old kid. I'm going to go to Memphis. Well, what are you going to do when you get there? I'm going to play, and I'm going to play double time.
I have to mention that part of our team also included some amazing background singers who had the ability to sing stuff back. You sing them a phrase and they can sing it back to you immediately, and sometimes better than when you sing it to Pat Nicholas, who lived right next door to the studio, and Andre Williams.
Wow.
So they were like part of the team. I mean, they were always my first phone call for I need some background vocals. They come in and just get it done.
That was one of the things that we heard about Hal Blaine, was that he lived real close to CBS. So if there was, somebody doing a session in the middle of the night and they were like, this is it, we got to put this down, they'll be like, well, we're going to have to call Hal because he lives right down the street and he'll show up.
Right.
And of course, it's predicated on the fact that he could get the job done.
Oh,
but sometimes proximity really helps you out.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to have capable people close by.
Yes, it comes in handy.
One thing I wanted to say too, you guys described how you sort of figured out your roles as musicians and producers, and you started on the piano, and your mom and dad were around doing things, but it's so much more than that. My dad's got an undergrad degree in music. We had a full church organ in our house, a Con, big refrigerator-sized speakers and stuff. I took piano lessons. I played the trumpet.
Okay,
yeah, it didn't stick. My dad would do you hear the pipe organ versus the electric organ? And I would listen and I could maybe single out an instrument, but I could never hear that pipe organ over an electric organ. So you guys have something special, and you worked your ass off, obviously, And so first off, thank you for doing that, because you've changed the way I see the world. God dang, so don't underplay what you guys have done. You guys really are special. And I just, I got to say thank you, because I love it. I love music. I love what you guys give me, and just thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot, actually.
And I think that what Pete is saying highlights probably what you saw in James when he didn't know how to do anything, and you were willing to say, no, man, come on this ride with me.
I saw something, and I'd heard his stuff. And I'm like, damn, this dude is talented. I mean,
he can do it.
Unusually talented. Something that set him apart from the other folks who'd walk in my studio. Some of them who remain nameless were clueless, right? And so, but James knew it. I mean, there was serious creative spark. I could hear it. And so, my actually hiring him was more for me than him.
And it was by design.
I'm like,
see, all these years I thought it was just because I was good at what I did.
I'm like, I'm stealing these ideas. I can learn something from this guy. So.
The other thing that I think you guys have in common, and as long as I have known of you, really just seriously conversed for the first time tonight, you are a nice man.
Wow.
And and of course, I think the entire universe of James, and so that had to be something you guys saw in each other too, that you actually could do the work because you were pleasant enough to be around.
No, he's great to be around, and he's you probably already see and have heard that he's a lightweight comedian as well. He could easily have that as a second career.
That is what we've heard about you.
He's got jokes, man. So we spent a lot of time in the studio just laughing and having fun, man. Really, there was never ever a dull moment, and never anger or anything like that.
Boy, Derek fit into that.
Oh yeah.
Very, very well.
Great guy, man. Great guy. Well, on that note, I want to say that Felton, as humble as he is, hopefully is aware that he's helped a lot of people other than myself. A lot of people owe their career to Felton Pilate. And what I'm saying about helping people, mentoring, he mentored, we just met with Thomas McElroy.
He gushed about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was mentored by Felton as well as his partner, Denzel Foster. And, they, don't forget, they're the ones who helped to present the Tonys anyway.
That's
so
right.
then you have Dwayne, who you interviewed, you know what I mean? Hey, if that never happened, then there might not be a Tony, thanks to Felton.
I went to, one of the things that I used to do a lot would be to just voluntarily walk into a college or high school, walk over to the music department. Hey, I'm Felton Pilate. I'm just here for the day. Would you like for me to talk to your class?
That's one of those questions like, does the Pope shit in the woods?
Right.
You go, really?
And so I was at Castlemont High School because the music director there played the organ at my mom's church.
Okay.
So, Phil Reeder, right?
Phil Reeder.
And so I went to go talk to his class, and it wasn't until years later that Dwayne tells me that he was in that class, and he remembers distinctly me covering.
Wow.
Me coming, and he said, "Yeah, man." He said that my visit inspired him to start a band.
No kidding.
Thank you again.
Man.
And then it's worth mentioning, too, I have to say, that E40's first studio experience, first album, first introduction into the music industry was at this man's recording studio.
That's what you did when you were in Vallejo and you wanted to be serious about music. Well, I better get with Felton, and if I don't make it there, then I know I'm not going to do it. We, of course, our show is the Break It Down show. A lot of things that we do come from Pete and myself sitting across from each other and really just over criticizing a lot of things, really analyzing stuff down to where it came from. And your influence is in all of those things directly, but indirectly in a lot, naturally all day today, since we found out we were going to talk with you tonight. We've just been listening to Con Funk Shun all day. More than a few times, Pete would stop and say, man, there's no Jodeci if not for, or there's no whatever it is, Justin Timberlake. And we would just hear things and go, man, come on. This is everything that you hear now came from somewhere, and so much of it was just influenced by, a lot of things and a lot of soulful music. But when you listen to things side by side, and when you listen to Con Funk Shun and the variety that you gave us of all that music, you hear so many things now that you can go, man, this is touched either directly or indirectly by Felton Pilate. So thank you, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure.
All right.